welcome to the African Exodus show. I'm your host, Tierney Cherie, here to you with a new video. Before we get started, I want to remind you, if you have not already, please do add yourself to my Telegram channel. That is a decentralized app that I use to update you all anytime I post a video or anything else I want to share. So the link to that is down in the description. With that, let's get started with African and World News. Things are starting to heat up in the country of Niger, and if you have not heard, there's going to be some moves by the ECOWAS, supposedly within the next few weeks or so, that could be an actual military intervention. So let's go to a first story. I actually want to talk about the United States again in relation to Niger. What's interesting is that despite the fact that France is being ousted out of the country of Niger, the United States is firmly at home still inside of that country. And this is despite the fact that we know that the U.S., more than France even, when you look at today's politics, the U.S. is the #1 imperialist in the world. So I'm going to read from this article. In Niger, the U.S. seeks to hang on to its last, best counter-terrorist outpost in West Africa. 10 days into a coup in Niger, life has become more challenging for U.S. forces at a counterterrorism base in a region of West Africa known as the world's epicenter of terrorism. Flights in and out of the country have been curtailed as coup leaders require Americans to seek permission for each flight. Fuel shortages mean that U.S. commander must sign off whenever an aircraft is refueled. And yet, as several European countries evacuate Niger, the Biden administration is showing itself intent on staying. That's right, everyone. And this is why we have to not get caught up with the wind whenever we hear of things happening. Despite the fact that other European powers are leaving Niger, the United States is still staying right there. It sees Niger as the U.S.'s last best counterterrorism outpost, and until the coup, a promising democracy in an unstable region south of the Sahara Desert. Abandoning it risked not only a surge in jihadist groups, but even greater influence by Russia's Wagner mercenary group. In an opinion piece published late Thursday in the Washington Post, democratically elected President Mohamed Bazoum urged the U.S. and others to help restore its constitutional order. He warned that otherwise the entire Sahel region could fall to the Russian influence via the Wagner Group, and Islamic extremists would take advantage of Niger's instability. While some European governments shut embassies and evacuated their citizens on military flights this week, as scattered anti-Western protests broke out following the coup, U.S. diplomats sent home non-essential staff and some family this week, but stayed on. So let's emphasize that. Other European governments have been sending away their citizens, saying, everyone, we're going to get you out of here, let's evacuate. The United States, though, has only sent away the non-essential staff, and for the most part, their embassy is still open. In fact, the quote says, the U.S. embassy is open. We intend to remain open, State Department spokesman Matthew Miller told reporters in Washington. As the U.S. overthrow stretches into its second week, as the military overthrow, stretches into its second week, U.S. officials refuse to formally call it a coup, saying they retain hope of a return to civilian government. Junta leaders announced late Thursday that they were severing Niger's military partnerships with France, the country's colonial ruler, but they have said nothing about doing the same regarding the hundreds of millions of dollars of training and support from the United States, signaling they may have hope of working with Washington. The U.S. says it suspended military cooperation since the first day of Bazoum's detention. Both France and the United States have threatened to cut off millions of dollars in aid unless the new junta steps down, but the usual U.S. response of sanctions and isolation when a military figure seizes power in West Africa is riskier now given the avidity of jihadists and Kremlin-allied forces. So let's just paint this picture for everyone. A coup happens, and it's an anti-imperialist coup is what we're being told. An anti-colonial or neo-colonial coup is what we're being told. Yet the biggest neo-colonial power, the biggest imperialist power in the world is still sitting right there in the country without anything being said directly about it. Not to mention the fact that, as we spoke last week, it's been put out there in the news that this coup leader, as well as many of the coup leaders from these recent coups, was trained in the United States. So the big question you might have is, why is France okay with this? Like, let's say what the things are pointing to, that maybe the United States is a little closer to the situation than that they're letting on. Why is France okay with this happening? And it could be several different reasons why. One could be, as I said last week, France also sees China as being a threat and is willing to step back so that the United States could reassert dominance inside of the region, with to prevent a situation where China would essentially outpace Western powers, which is what I believe. But another thing could be, maybe France and the United States are not as close as we thought. Maybe the U.S. and France are not on the same page. Maybe France is feeling very slighted right now about the fact that the United States happens to have such a good relationship, or at least a good enough relationship with Niger, that they're able to stay put despite the fact that other Western countries are fleeing. So it could be a number of things. But again, I believe that this could be for the ultimate purpose of pushing out China, Russia out of the region. But it's important for you to also know, as we speak, things are being said about a possible intervention inside of Niger by the ECOWAS. Niger, a Western ally in the turbulent Sahel region, fell in a coup on July 26. Since then, the 15-nation economic community of West African states intergovernmental union, of which Niamey is a member, has been threatening military intervention if the upsurging of the National Council for Safeguarding of the Homeland does not reinstate the government of President Mohamed Bazoum, who appears to be under house arrest. The ECOWAS has given the junta an ultimatum to reinstate civilian rule earlier this month, but after the deadline passed, its military chiefs activated the union's standby force and ordered its deployment to restore constitutional order in the Republic of Niger, while leaving open the possibility for negotiations for a peaceful resolution. What the activation and deployment of its standby force meant was unclear and remained so on Wednesday, when it said in a statement that its chiefs of defense will meet Thursday and Friday in Accra, Ghana, to finalize plans for its deployment. It said that the meetings will be a follow-up of the directive given in August 10th to activate and deploy the unknown number of troops. So we're basically inching closer to a possibility of a war, a continental war, or at least Western continental war, that would involve a number of countries at the same time. Not to mention the fact that we have outside intervention that is also stoking up this type of conflict between African countries. So it's a very serious situation. We're inching closer to a war, and the ECOWAS essentially are taking orders from the United States. So let that resonate with you. We know that the ECOWAS, again, they take orders from the U.S. And also we know that the U.S. has a very stable position inside of Niger. They're not moving, they're not budging, they're not leaving, even though other European countries are. So I let you draw your own conclusions about what these coups are and what they are signaling. I've told you my theory. I told you my strong belief that this is really being set up to be a war for the purpose of reasserting Western dominance for the entire African continent. And that would make sense if you think about the fact that why is France seemingly okay with the United States doing these things? Well, maybe they're okay with them doing these things if this ultimately means that the Western powers get to, in the long run, keep their dominance inside of the African continent. So with that, let's go to the next story. The other conflict that is revving up is still what's going on with Haiti. We're inching closer to an intervention by the United Nations, but really by the United States, also by Kenya being the leader. But we also know, again, Kenya is an AFRICOM hub, so that means the United States would be essentially the leader. The United States put forward this resolution to have Kenya be the one to intervene into Haiti, and so now it's only a matter of time. Is this going to be vetoed by Russia and China, or is this going to go forward? Now, in the wake of this, we're hearing this narrative play out in the media. And as I said, you can learn from how these things are happening as far as how they manipulate the people. Because stirring up the narrative, that's the first thing. What did they have to do inside of Iraq? Stir up the narrative of weapons of mass destruction. Otherwise, they would not have been able to get the American public to capitulate to their fear. Oh no, weapons of mass destruction. Go ahead and invade this country for absolutely no reason. Here, the big thing that they're trying to stoke people's fear about is these Haitian gang members, which we've also read in previous videos. They're saying that these gangs are spreading throughout the Caribbean. Now, one supposed gang leader, and I'm quoting this because that could actually be the opposite of what this person is. It could be that they're using the gang leader label in order to, similar to how they'll call someone a terrorist if they want to paint this picture of the person. They'll use gang member as a way to paint a picture of a person as well. But this is what they're saying. This is a Haitian gang member, according to the news, but we don't trust them. An ex-police officer considered by many to be Haiti's most powerful gang leader warned Wednesday that he would fight any international armed force deployed to the Caribbean country if it committed any abuses. Jimmy Cherizier, best known as Barbecue, also urged Haitians to mobilize against the government. He said, "We are asking the population to rise up," he said at a news conference. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, that does not sound like a gang member to me. That sounds like someone who is politically astute, someone who telling the masses to rise up, someone who has a level of consciousness, particularly with some of the things he also says when I'm about to read. Chazier said he would welcome a foreign force if it were to arrest the prime minister and people he described as corrupt politicians and local police allegedly selling ammunition and guns in Haiti's slums. So I don't want to go past that last part, selling guns in the slums, but let's just go back a little bit. What did he say? We would welcome a foreign force if you are here to arrest the prime minister. Again, showing someone with political conscience. Doesn't sound like a gang member to me, because we know that the prime minister of Haiti is an illegitimate leader. We know that he is a U.S. puppet. He was put into office by the United States government in order to control the nation and let the nation continue to be pillaged by the U.S. and its allies. So clearly, saying this person needs to be arrested, that doesn't sound like someone who's some criminal gang member. No, that sounds like someone who is a politically minded activist, just from what I'm reading at least. But he said something else very essential. He said, arrest the police, the corrupt politicians and local police selling ammunition and guns in Haiti's slums. So what did I tell you about this supposed gang crisis in previous videos? This is something that they will do in order to stir up the narrative, in order to let the world be okay with an intervention inside of Haiti. We hear gangs being the reason why this time. These gangs. And this is being done in order to allow an intervention, we know. But what is actually the gang situation? Are these people actually gang members? Or are these people who are being hired by the deep state? Are these people who are actually gang members, or are these people who are being supplied ammunition for the purpose of giving a perception that there's a violence problem? That's something you have to understand. When it comes to people running around with these military assault rifles, where did they get those? They didn't get those, they didn't make it in their backyard. Clearly someone's selling these things to the people. When you're selling guns like that inside of a slum, that purpose is for genocide and self-destruction, something that's been done. We know, if you are from the United States, we know that they sell these type of weapons inside of the hood inside of the United States. We know that they've been doing that historically. And the fact that this is also an allegation of what's been happening in Haiti now also, to me, gives credits to the belief that this gang problem is being stirred up and created by the United States, because they not only want for Haitians to kill Haitians, but they want to ultimately intervene into Haiti to control the situation themselves. So let's go on. It says, we will fight. Oh, let's go back to him. I'm sorry. If the foreign force comes to help and provide security for life to start over again, we will also apply it. Again, doesn't sound like a gang member to me. He said Haitians would rise up if any international force repeated the actions of previous UN peacekeepers, committing sexual abuses and inadvertently introducing cholera into water sources. This is something that was notorious for the intervention. And this is why I want our people to understand. Some people, whenever I started reporting on the fact that Kenya was trying to intervene in Haiti, they said, oh, yes, good, Kenya, go to Haiti. Understand, this is not Kenya coming inside of the name of a Pan-African brotherhood. This is Kenya coming under the directives put forth by the United States government through the United Nations that has a history of abusing people, not just in Kenya, all over the world. We can think of a notable example is like the Congo. This is a organization that has shown that they're not there for peacekeeping, that they're only there for abusing, that they're only there for violence, that they're only there to strip the people of their sovereignty. So understand what he's saying is very true. The United Nations going there, what did they do last time? Cholera outbreak, rapes, mass pillaging. This is what they're known for. Why would we applaud this just because Kenya wants to be the one to lead the initiative? Kenya itself has problems that should be taken care of at home. Why are we applauding them for going to do this inside of a foreign nation? Now it says, we will fight against them until our last breath. It will be a fight of the Haitian people to save the dignity of our country. And when I read that, I instantly said, this is truly someone who is of a liberation mindset and of a Haitian persuasion, if that makes sense. This is someone who is coming out of that liberation struggle, because when he said, I'll fight with my last breath, what do we know about the people of Haiti? Historically, they have fought with their last breath for their freedom and for their sovereignty, even against the odds, against the biggest imperialists, against the behemoths of the international world system. They've done that time and time again. So this person is being called a gang member. I think not. I don't know any direct knowledge of this person, and I'm sure more will come out. I'm sure there's more research to be done. So I put that on all you to also contribute. But understand that the narrative of gangs, don't repeat this narrative. Always suspect when the newspapers are trying to peddle a certain narrative or give a certain image when it comes to our people. Understand that this is always being done in order to undercut our moves for sovereignty and our moves to be self-governing, our moves to have liberation. That's the only reason that they stir up these type of narratives. They're not interested in our liberation. They're certainly not interested in our sovereignty. They're only interested in their ability to control us. So be careful not to peddle the narratives of the newspapers and of the media sources that are well established inside of this world. So with that, let's go to the next story. Sad story. I always get sick of reading these because it's sad, and it's the situation that we're in. So in certain African countries is leading people to do something that might be akin to suicide. That's what you should look at when it comes to migrants crossing over the Mediterranean to try to get to Europe. That is very close to trying to kill yourself in order to which for a slim chance that you not only will get to the place where you're trying to go, but that once you get there, you won't be arrested and sent right back home. That is something that is being done all the time. And unfortunately, many of our people have been dying inside of boats that are being turned over in the ocean, and no one ever hears about them again. They disappear, and their cause, their struggle, their suffering is all in vain. So this is something that has been happening. And we had another recent story. It said more than 60 migrants feared dead at sea off Cape Verde coast. The ministry said it was liaising with authorities in Cape Verde to arrange the repatriation of Senegalese nationals. The passengers' other countries of origin reportedly include Sierra Leone and, in one case, Guinea-Bissau. Jose Moreira, I think I said that right, Jose Moreira, a health official on SAL, said the survivors were improving and were being looked after with a focus on rehydration and tests for conditions like malaria. Health Minister Philomena Goncalves said that we know that the migration issues are a global issue, which require international cooperation and a lot of discussion and global strategy. And that's another thing about this whole thing. You understand that the imperialists do not want us inside of, going to their countries. They want to take from us without ever having to give anything back. So obviously, if you are, for example, able to migrate to Europe, that means that you're now possibly going to take take back some of what has been stolen. If you think about the fact that now that country might have to treat you as, if not a citizen, at least you have some type of rights as long as you're not deported or anything like that. So they don't want that situation. They want to take from Africa without anyone reminding them of what they did or reminding them of the consequences. And so one of the consequences obviously is mass poverty, people who are starving, people who are trying to get better. So they don't want that. And because of that, these countries have been working very hard to keep migrants out of Europe. One of the ways they've been doing that is by sending them to Rwanda, sending them to camps basically in Africa in order to try to find a way to push them away. So this is the issue when it comes to international governments. They're not interested in allowing Africans, obviously, into their countries unless they can control how many come in. But as far as what they're willing to do, they're willing to see you basically to export this problem, put this problem inside of Rwanda, make camps in Rwanda where people are going to go and make that our solution. Now, as ever with irregular migration, exact figures are hard to come by. But between 2020 and 2023, at least 67,000 people arrived in the Canary Islands. Over that same period, just over 2,500 lost their lives. But here's an important point, that the figure covers deaths that have been registered, meaning we really don't know how many people are losing their lives trying to cross over to Europe, because once these people die, if you drown at sea, for example, if no one's around, how are they going to know? If no one reports it, how are they going to know? If you basically disappear, no one will know. So we really don't know how many of our people are going to do this dangerous trip. So what is driving people to leave their homes and risk such a dangerous journey? Poverty obviously is a key factor. Europe is seen as a route to a better life for the person migrating, as well as the remittances to support the family they leave behind. There are, however, other factors at play. Much of West Africa is increasingly unstable, with coups and Islamist insurgencies making an already difficult situation worse. And I will remind you all, not only the coups, but these insurgencies are being sponsored by the West. These are problems that are being created to control Africa and to cause chaos. In Senegal, opposition politicians have been imprisoned with claims of violent crackdowns by authorities. We know President Macky Sall, he announced that he will not seek a third term, but the tensions remain high. So a very sad situation. The other sad thing is a lot of times whenever whether it's a boat that just overturns or when it gets lost at sea, a lot of times there are children on these boats. That's the worst thing to think about, a poor child who just went along with their parent or caregiver and now they're gone. So this is a very dangerous situation. If it's ever, going to reach the ears of our brothers and sisters, I just want to say it again, that this trip is not worth it. It's not worth you dying. It's not worth you being lost at sea for a European dream or American dream. Obviously, the situation and the conditions that colonialism creates inside of Africa are akin to misery. That's undoubtedly the truth. But the solutions are not going to be found by going into your oppressor's territory. Many times these boats that are sinking or overturning, you could see that literally the European authorities who are at sea, that are monitoring the sea, there's been times that they've literally just sat down and watched a bunch of people drown. You see it on camera. So these people don't care about your life. They don't care about your life, but those who do care about your life are probably amongst your own people. So I have to just say that again, a sad story. It keeps happening. We want to remind ourselves, though, that the situation in Africa is dire, and it's why we have to pull together as a people to care and do for ourselves, because this European system is only going to get more volatile as things go forth. So let's go to the next story. This is a story that I'm going to cover more inside of the Black Child Advocacy Network channel. So link to that will be down below, but I did want to touch on it a little bit here. The Blindside dad, Sean Tory, says that the conservatorship that allowed Michael Oher to play was what allowed Michael Oher to play at Ole Miss. So I wanted to cover this because I remember when The Blind Side, which is, if you don't know, good for you. It's a Hollywood movie that came out. I think I was in college when it came out, and it's literally the white savior manifesto. You have a white woman who takes a poor Black inner city youth who doesn't know any math, doesn't know how to read, basically just dumb, right? That's how they depicted him. And takes him in, and she teaches him how to play football. She gives him a home, gives him everything, and then he goes off to be an NFL star, all thanks to this white family, and particularly the white woman. So I hated this movie when it first came out. I never liked it. I never understood why Hollywood liked it so much. But then again, I understand why, because they like to think that there are saviors. But we're starting to find out that that whole story was a farce, which we kind of knew before. I remember a couple years ago, Michael Oher did come out and say that his depiction inside of the movie was not truth. I mean, they made it seem like he couldn't read or write. He might have had some learning issues or some academic issues, like many kids do. But he was not this I can't read, I can't talk person that they put forth inside of the movie. So that right there showed me that the movie had some real issues, but even more has come out. So Sean Tohi, he is the father figure that was put out in the movie as being one of the ones that adopted Michael Oher. So he reacted to Michael Oher. He has a lawsuit against his family. Tahi, who is 63, called Oher's claims insulting in a statement on the Daily Memphian. It's upsetting to think we would make money off of any of our children, he said, adding that he and his family are devastated over the lawsuit. But we're going to love Michael at 37 just like we loved him at 16. Or 37, he filed a petition alleging that Sean and his wife, Leah Ann Tohi, never officially adopted him, despite what's been depicted. He was never adopted by these people, and instead profited off the claim that they did. According to court documents obtained by the U.S. Weekly, Oher claimed that Sean and Lee Ann, who is 63, convinced him to sign a document in 2004 that made them his conservators, which gave the family legal authority to make business deals in his name. And this is like a slave master type of situation. The fact that they actually had this conservatorship and to this day have a conservatorship is insane. The lie of Michael's adoption is one which co-conservators Leah Ann Tohi and Sean Tohi have enriched themselves at the expense of their ward, the undersigned Michael Oher, read the filing. Michael Oher discovered this lie to his chagrin and embarrassment February of 2023 when he learned that the conservatorship, which he consented on the basis that doing so would make him a member of the Tohi family, in fact provided him no familial relationship with the Tohis. Sean, for his part, claimed on Monday the conservatorship arrangement was made so that he could play football at the University of Mississippi. They said that the only way Michael could go to Ole Miss is if he was actually a part of the family. I sat Michael down and told him, if you're planning to go to Ole Miss or if you're considering Ole Miss, you have to be a part of the family. This would do that legally. We contacted lawyers who told us that we couldn't adopt over the age of 18. Only thing we could do was to have a conservatorship, which we found out is a lie. I believe the state is Tennessee, and Tennessee does allow adult adoptions like many states do. So they could have adopted him if they wanted to. So this is an important moment for us where we finally get to show the hypocrisy of Hollywood and their white do-goodism and their need to get praise for liberating and saving the Black people, because that's all that movie was about, and so many other movies. This one, of course, being one of the starkest examples. I mean, I hated that movie because I'm like, are you serious? This is what you want to give an Oscar for? This depiction of a woman saving a poor Black man? This is what you think is Oscar worthy? But then that reminds us that the Oscars also are a farce, so we should not be offended by that. Trust me, I'm not. But the fact is that we find out this man was inside of a conservatorship, and he's 37 now. So not only was he not adopted, meaning he doesn't have any rights to from these people. I mean, if something were to happen, he has no familial rights, no legal connection to these people. Instead, they have a conservatorship, which is akin to basically an ownership, if you think about it. They wanted to make his business decisions. They wanted to make business decisions for a grown man. And not until he finally comes out and outs them to the public, because let's be very clear, I'm very sure that he's told them, I want to end this conservatorship. Not until he puts it out in the public. Now they're trying to cry wolf and say, oh, it wasn't our fault. You know, we were just trying to do best by him. So we had him in a conservatorship all this time, despite the fact he's a grown man at this time, 37 years old, could make his own decisions, make his own business decisions. But we held on to that long past what was necessary. No, you know, we wanted to adopt him, but we couldn't, even though they do allow adult adoptions, but we just couldn't. So we just went with the conservatorship. That just shows you right now why we have to stop taking this whole white savior narrative serious. And hopefully that was a wake-up call to some of you who still believe in it. Some of you still believe that until someone comes along and gives you affirmation that you are nothing. No, these people, if anything, leech off of us. And that's what you see inside of this situation. These people have got to be famous, all because they took a poor black boy in and manipulated him to signing away their rights. So tell me how that's fair. Tell me how that's something that's good. Tell me how that's something that worked out for his good whenever this man can't even make his own legal decisions. So of course, I'm sure the conservatorship will be done away with. There's no mention of him being mentally incapacitated, which is, again, why would you keep this going for this long if you were sincerely interested in this man? Don't tell me you forgot that you forgot. Oh, we forgot that we have the right to make all these decisions about you. No, you were keeping this for this long, and now you're being outed. So now you want to pretend that, oh, it's not our fault. You know, we were trying to help him way past what would have been long past the time where, if that were the case, he would even need your help. So this is how the system works. It's important for us to remember it. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this story. Let's go to the next one. So I have some more details on the situation that's going on in Ethiopia. I don't have a strong opinion as far as what is going on, but I think it's important to report. So we heard that the Amhara region of Ethiopia, they're having basically the government of Ethiopia is battling with some people there. So the Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has found himself at the center of a new conflict, this time in the vitally important Amhara region that marshaled its troops to help him thwart an attempt by rival Tigrayan forces to topple him. The conflict is the last sign that Mr. Abiy is battling to live up to his noble lawyership, an honor bestowed on him in 2019 for ending a long-running hostilities with Eritrea and with setting Ethiopia on the path of democracy after almost 3 decades of iron rule. Something I just want to say about this. So something that's very interesting. I always thought it was very strange that he got a Nobel Peace Prize like that quick. And the only person who I could think of like that is Obama. Obama basically got a Nobel Peace Prize for being black, which tells you that the Nobel Peace Prize is not sincerely interested in peace. I mean, Obama went on to be the most lethal president as far as drones being used to kill Africans inside of Africa and Arabia. So clearly, you know, he's not this Nobel Peace Prize, or he's not a peaceful person is what I'm trying to say. But Abiy Ahmed got this similarly. And it makes me think that perhaps, you know, at one time they had a favorable view of him for the international machine that controls our people, that he was going to be one of those to follow their agenda all the way through. And probably the biggest thing that has changed that image of him is his staunch position that he wants this dam for Ethiopia, a dam that's going to possibly lead to a situation where Ethiopia and Egypt could go to war over it, because the dam that he's trying to build is on the Blue Nile, and that would affect the water flow of the Nile into Egypt. So even though the dam is inside of Ethiopia's borders, that dam would basically give Ethiopia the control, if they wanted to, significantly decrease the amount of water that's going into Egypt. They would be able to. Something interesting, the violence has raised alarm internationally, with Israel, the state of Israel, evacuating its citizens and Jewish people from the region last week. So it says the violence can be traced back to the peace deal signed by the federal government and Tigray People's Liberation Front to end the 2-year civil war that saw Tigrayan forces advance towards Addis Ababa in 2021, before being forced to retreat back north. The agreement was brokered by the African Union with the backing of the United States. So that's important to emphasize. The peace agreement that was worked out inside of the Tigray Ethiopian war, it was one that was brokered by the UN, by the AU, and was backed by the U.S. and was widely welcomed as an attempt to restore stability in Ethiopia, a vast country that has long been regarded as a linchpin for security in the Horn of Africa and as the birthplace of Pan-African unity. But the deal was met with deep suspicion among Amharas as they were excluded from the talks despite the fact that the Fanos militias and Amhara Special Forces, a paramilitary group linked to the regional government, fought on the side of the federal army. The influential U.S.-based campaign group, the Amhara Association of America, went as far as to describe it as a war pact, a charge denied by Mr. Abiy's government. Nevertheless, the perception took root in Amhara, especially after Mr. Abiy then announced plans to dismantle the special forces present in each of Ethiopia's 11 ethnically based regions. He proposed that the special forces, which are thought to number in the tens of thousands, to be integrated into the federal army and police force in order to foster ethnic unity, to prevent regional forces being drawn into conflicts, as the case in Tigray when its special forces joined the rebellion against Mr. Abiy's government in 2020, more than 2 years after he assumed the premiership. But many Amharas saw his plans a red flag, arguing it would leave them vulnerable to attacks from neighboring Tigray, the historic rivals in land and power in Ethiopia. As so far, the Prime Minister has primarily relied on military force, with the lower chamber of parliament endorsing on Monday his decision to declare a 6-month-long state of emergency in the region. This has placed Amhara under a de facto control of its security services. The region has been divided into 4 command posts, falling under the overall control of a committee chaired by Intelligence Chief Temesgen Tirune. And the heavy deployment of troops has been backed by air power. On Sunday, an airstrike was carried out in the town of Fionte Salem, reportedly killing at least 26 people at an anti-government demonstration. This has fueled speculation that the army will increasingly use its air power to repel the territorial gains of the Fano, though it carries the risk of causing civilian casualties. The government has neither confirmed nor denied that an airstrike took place. So this is something that is more understandable to understand what is happening. I wasn't sure why the Amhara militia group was rebelling against Abiy Ahmed. We still don't know whether or not they're being sponsored by the U.S. or another power group in order to destabilize the government. That's something I'm always suspicious of, especially in the wake of what just happened with Tigray. So I'm still looking for more details to come out on that. I would love to hear everyone's perspective on that, particularly those of us, if you are from that region, definitely share your thoughts in what you have seen or what you have observed or any intel that you have. But it seems to be a situation about local sovereignty. We have to understand when it comes to colonialism that a lot of countries were packed in together that weren't necessarily a singular nation. Ethiopia still being one of them, although Ethiopia has the longest history of being a territory that was without colonial intervention. Still, we have a number of ethnic groups that are inside of one nation that might have conflicting interests. And so whenever that happens, you have an issue whenever you have one group that wants to exercise autonomy and you're trying to practice nationalism with a group that's local and trying to be autonomous, that can be a struggle. So definitely a situation to look out for, definitely get more details on. Just one I wanted to share with you all. But that is all I have for this week, and I will see you on the next one.
Prior to Abraham Lincoln, the government in this country said it was legal to hold Africans in slavery in perpetuity. Perpetuity is one of the University of Chicago words. That means forever. From now on. When Lincoln got in office, the government changed. Prior to the passing of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments to the Constitution, the government defined Africans as slaves, as property, people with no rights to be respected by any whites anywhere. The Supreme Court of the government, same court, granddaddy court of the one that stole the 2000 election, Supreme Court said in its Dred Scott decision in the 1850s, no African anywhere in this country has any rights that any white person has to respect at any place, anytime. That was the government's official position, backed up by the Supreme Court, that's the judiciary, backed up by the executive branch, branch, that's the president, backed up by the legislative branch, and enforced by the military of the government. But I stopped by to tell you tonight that governments changed. Prior to Harry Truman's government, the military in this country was segregated. But governments changed prior to the civil rights and equal accommodations laws of the government in this country. There was back segregation by the country, legal discrimination by the government, prohibited blacks from voting by the government. You had to eat in separate places by the government. You had to sit in different places from white folk because the government said so. And you had to be buried in a separate cemetery. It was apartheid American style from the cradle to the grave, all because the government backed it up. But guess what? Governments change. Where governments lie, God does not lie. Where governments change, God does not change. And I'm through now. But let me leave you with one more thing. Governments fail. The government in this text comprised of Caesar, Quirinius, Pontius Pilate, Pontius Pilate. The Roman government failed. The British government used to rule from east to west. The British government had a Union Jack. She colonized Kenya, Ghana, Nigeria, Jamaica, Barbados, Trinidad, and Hong Kong. Her navies ruled the 7 seas all the way down to the tip of Argentina in the Falklands. But the British government failed. The Russian government failed. The Japanese government failed. The German government failed. And the United States of America government, when it came to treating her citizens of Indian descent fairly, she failed. She put them on reservations. When it came to treating her citizens of Japanese descent fairly, she failed. She put them in internment prison camps. When it came to treating the citizens of African descent fairly, America failed. She put them in chains. The government put them on slave quarters, put them on auction blocks, put them in cotton fields, put them in inferior schools, put them in substandard housing, put them in scientific experiments, put them in the lowest paying jobs, put them outside the equal protection of the law, kept them out of their racist bastions of higher education, and locked them into positions of hopelessness and helplessness. The government gives them the drugs, builds bigger prisons, passes a 3-strike law, and then wants us to sing God Bless America. No, 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 not God Bless America. God damn America, that's in the Bible, for killing innocent people. God damn America, for treating our citizens as less than human. God damn America, as long as she tries to act like she is God and she is supreme. The United States government has failed the vast majority of her citizens of African descent.